Hello and welcome. I'm going to fly this airplane to Texas and bring you along to see what it looks like to fly in IFR conditions. The flight started out in Illinois, just west of Chicago. So my path of flight was across Missouri, a little corner of Oklahoma, down into Texas. I was headed to Mineral Wells, just west of Dallas. So this is where I first encountered the IFR weather, um, southern part of Missouri. And this is the way it very often is. It's just kind of a lower layer. And you see some choppiness up ahead, a little bit of a rainstorm off to the side maybe, and then it kind of goes white. Let's take a look inside the panel here. 4,000 feet, autopilot's flying, 136 indicated. I think I was truing at 146 knots. And take a look at my navigators here. I'm following that magenta line. And 2.5 hours ahead of me still. This second display I use mostly for traffic and weather. So it's got less navigation, less terrain, and more flight information. And then over to the right here, I have my ARA, which is showing me some weather information at a much longer scale. So I'm looking at a larger area there. I do have weather on the other two radios as well. So I was headed down between two areas of rain and some IFR in between. As you see, when you look up, you can see the sun up through the clouds, so the tops are not too high above us. But as you look around, it's pretty much gray. Although every once in a while you see these little peaks. You see that little, almost looks like a horizon over there on the right-hand side. There's a little bit of moisture in this cloud. You can see it running down the cowl and up the windshield. But generally, for most of this flight, now there's a little bit of a bright spot. You see, you just kind of get amongst some tops every now and then, and there are just some seams in the cloud. But it's mostly gray. What's the really interesting parts are when you're flying along in this gray, and suddenly you pop out into something. And of course, you never have the video running when that happens. Here you get a little bit of the idea, kind of in and out of some tops. You can see some stuff around. And then all of a sudden it kind of clears out. Suddenly you can see some, what looks like horizon. Now what's really interesting is that often the horizon is at funny angles or it's undulating. As we see here, there's looks like terrain over there. But that's just the tops of the clouds. They happen to be smooth in that area. And there's waves. I'm flying into a 40-knot headwind, so there is quite a bit of wave action happening inside the clouds here, and that's making some of these shapes. And that's part of what's really interesting about IFR flying. You see some most remarkable things. So here we're flying in the gray. You can kind of see the sun is up there. That's a clue that you're getting close to tops. And then suddenly it sort of opens up, and we see some blue sky ahead. At this point, I'm climbing. I was at 4,000 feet for the first part of that leg, and I climbed up to 6,000, and that was climbing out of that layer. It's not a hard top, but you see there's some higher and some lower. Now what's interesting, up ahead there, it looks like there's a clear space. There's no clouds down there. But very often what that is just a shadow from the top cloud. There's another layer above it, and the shadow of that top layer falls down on the layer below, and it looks like there's no clouds there. As you get closer, you see there are clouds there. They're just in shadow. As we go a little further south, we see the tops are more defined. We still have some shadows over there from a mid-layer cloud, and there's some higher clouds up above. So this is a nice way to cruise. It's smooth air, but again, still 40 knots on the nose, so it was slow. And as you look around, you can see there's some trends from east to west. Sometimes you see higher off to the side, and very often you'll see a very slanted cloud top, which will really set you off a little bit if you think you're flying by the horizon. You have to be very careful when you're above clouds that you are looking at what you think you're looking at. So it'll sweep around the side. You can see how things look to the west and then to the south. There's a whole area there that looks lower. It kind of looks like it might be opening up, but as I go, it doesn't really turn out to open up. I end up at my arrival site there, kind of popping off the edge of a cloud, maybe 10 miles from the airport, and the runway was there. Here you can see it's much higher to the left. The camera really is level, and you can kind of see that as I go by the dash of the airplane. Over to the west, to the right, it's lower, and to the east, to the left, it goes up higher. And indeed, there was a pretty good wall of clouds that I was flying alongside here towards the end of my flight. Now that's headed towards that area of rain that we saw on the ARA. It's a pretty good bunch of rain over to the left side there. So it's probably 40, 50, 60 miles away, but you can see the clouds growing up to it. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that, and check back again for more.